I'm looking for a new president, so if you know anyone.
Yeah, me too.
And I mean it.
Yeah.
Staci McCool, welcome to the Carrie Croft Show.
I'm excited to be here. This is weird hearing you say that because I heard it so much in my earbuds.
Listening, and now
I'm here.
Now it's you. What are you going to do when you have to like sit down and actually listen to yourself? You're like, oh wait, it's my episode.
I don't know. I hate the sound of my voice.
Why? See, everybody who sits down with me says something about their voice.
When I have to play back classes, because we record some Zoom classes, and just to make sure the audio worked or whatever, the second I hear my voice and I know that it worked, I just turn it off. I don't want to hear it. I turn it off.
Yeah, so you, my friend, you're not only a yoga instructor, but you are a business owner of the Bluespot in Bexley. Mm-hmm. It's a great space.
Yeah, we got lucky, but there's a whole story behind that.
And a great community that you've built.
Yeah.
Right? So you've been doing this since
15, end of 2015.
No, so because you were at the bar at Hudson, like in when
you came in once. I remember.
Yeah. Like I remembered you.
Oh, okay.
I remember you behind the bar.
I didn't even think you knew who I was.
No, when you said that, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, you was more than once.
My little black tie.
Yes.
I only tied it once, just pulled it off, put it back on.
So what makes one decide I'm gonna open up a studio? I'm gonna name her Bluespot. Like, what was the catalyst there?
So my husband Adam and I moved to upstate New York right after I graduated from Ohio State. We lived up there for 6 years, I think, and I found my practice there, my yoga practice. I was just dealing with, like, out of nowhere, crazy anxiety. I think that we all feel anxious from time to time. Like, I'm a little anxious. I was anxious about doing this and, the fear of the unknown. And now that I'm sitting here, it's fine.
You're like, does she bite?
Yeah, you're fine. I feel good.
Just, I might nibble. I might nibble.
It's all good. So there's a difference between feeling anxious and not wanting to get out of bed because the world is such a scary place. And so I tried a lot of different stuff, and people kept saying yoga, yoga, yoga. And so I'm like, fine. And I even went to different yoga classes, and nothing stuck. I hated it. I was like enraged and down dog. And then I tried a Bikram yoga class, like tried and true. Like, have you ever taken a Bikram yoga class?
I was addicted to it for a while.
Okay, so
And I went to Dublin religiously.
Like the purest form of a Bikram yoga class. 90 minutes, no music, bright lights like this. You're staring at yourself in the mirror. And so my first class, I tried not to die, basically, and it forced me not to think of anything other than that. And when I left, I was like, oh my God, for 90 minutes, I didn't think about anything. What was that? And then I went back the next day, and then the rest is history. And about a year and a half into my practice, we got pregnant, and I practiced pretty much to the end. So I'm just this like massive pregnant woman in her Bikram yoga outfit, little shorts, little bra. And at that time, Adam very unexpectedly got transferred back to Columbus, which was such a gift because I was terrified to have a baby and not have my family or his family around. And so as I was leaving the studio, I mean, you have SOS. When your members see what you've built as it's just a place that brings you great peace and belonging. And so the idea of leaving that studio where I found my practice was terrifying. And I just said to the owner, who's a good friend of mine now, as I was leaving, I remember it so vividly, I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do without your studio. And she just nonchalantly was like, you'll open your own. And I go, okay. And that was it. It was like she planted this seed, and it wasn't even like it slowly grew. It just like exploded in my brain. It was like, yeah. Why that clicked for me, I have no idea. I had no experience teaching yoga. I had only been practicing for maybe a year and a half. But I was like, yeah, that's what's going to happen. And I made it happen.
Isn't it funny how somebody will just
say something?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're like, aha, eureka.
Yeah.
Why the name Bluespot?
When we moved back, so Adam and I both had good paying jobs in New York, and then we moved back and I stayed home with Owen, our oldest, and I wasn't working. And so, money was a little tight. Couldn't afford that Lulu. And which I think it's funny that I was an ambassador forever. And I was an ambassador forever because of COVID. So they just like kept renewing it because they, didn't have the ability to go and find new people. So they're like, well, you can just do it again. You can do it again. So I have just a shit ton of Lululemon stuff, which I think is so funny that the Bluespot story comes from the fact that we couldn't afford Lululemon. But I wanted to do this yoga thing, right? And Adam wanted to like pump me up because I had to go do this like full month immersion teacher training program, which meant I had to leave our 18-month-old for 30 days. Like, can you imagine? I mean, you're in the thick of it. It was scary. And so he like got me this Lululemon outfit, and the top was like a white bra. And the next day or something, he washed it and he left an ink pen in his pocket, and there were blue spots all over it. And I was pissed. It was not a pretty reaction. And then I went off to training, and I was really sad and almost gave up. I mean, we were still nursing when I left, but it was like we were at the end of it. It was more like for comfort in the middle of the night kind of thing. But like my body was still producing milk, and I left. And it was really hard. And then one day I was in training, really sad. I looked down, I saw the blue spots all over my bra, and I was like, oh, they're right here. Mm. And it just washed over me that like one day this thing can bring you anger or rage or whatever, and then the next day it can bring you great peace.
It's so true.
So for me, it was just a lesson on perspective. And so I say to embrace life's blue spots.
I love the name. Like now I really love the name.
It's funny too, because when I was at training, I had told some of the trainers the epiphany that I had had. And I knew I wanted to open a yoga studio. And they're probably thinking, bitch, finish teacher training before you think about opening a yoga studio. But I'm like, nope, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to call it Bluespot. And I told them the story. And they were like, yeah, don't do that. No one's going to know what it means. And I was like, what does Nike mean? What does Lululemon mean? And they're like,
And you have the ability today to tell your story in so many ways. For example, taking a clip of what we just discussed, and you put that out, and everyone's like, oh, wait, I was curious about that. Now I know.
Yeah.
There's a million ways to tell your story.
Yeah. And there's been so many, like with underneath the Bluespot umbrella, there's so many of those stories that it's like in the moment it seems like catastrophic. And I appreciate that it was a brawl and a silly thing to be upset about. But yeah, I mean, it's just, you got to embrace those moments where it seems like it's not going to work out or this is the end. And it's just a pivot.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Let's go back to anxiety.
Ooh.
When was there a moment? Was there a thing? Was it a progression where you were like, okay, this isn't a moment of anxiety that I'm feeling and it's fleeting. This is now like my homeostasis. Like I'm constantly feeling like I'm becoming more like maybe debilitated or less able to just function in life.
Well, I remember just one story that comes to mind. Adam and I, so we lived in upstate New York, which was like a 3-hour drive to the city. And we would go there often for shows and whatever. And Adam took me there for my 25th birthday, I think. And it was in the throes of all of this. And they upgraded us, and we were in this beautiful suite. And I just got in the bed and threw the blanket over my head and laid there for what felt like an eternity. And it was just too scary. The world was just too scary. And like of all places to be driving around like Manhattan and all the people and that energy, probably not wise. But it was just like an experience that I couldn't enjoy because I was going through this. What it was, I don't know. I don't know what triggered it. Adam and I have recently had a lot of conversations. There were a lot of things that happened from a really young age that if I had to make an assumption about my little body, I don't know that it experienced a lot of calm. And I think I suppressed it for a really long time. And then all of a sudden, I leave Columbus. I'm really, really close with my mom. Like, probably, like, I didn't go away to school because I couldn't leave my mom. And so here I am in New York, and that's when it all really
Yeah. So in other
unraveled.
words, was your childhood tumultuous? You didn't have a safe space where you felt comfortable?
It's interesting. I did a really intense journey of therapy. I started at 38. I'd done therapy before, like as a family. We did it after my brother passed away. I've done it with my husband, but I don't think I ever did like individual therapy. And so I did it. I started at 38. I'll be 40. So I've been on this journey for about 2 years. And I think it helped me to understand a lot about myself, that maybe I don't know the stories entirely, but I think it's fair to assume that little Staci was anxious now as an adult because I'm just trying to be very cautious because I love my family very deeply, and I'm very, very close to them. And I will say this. My parents did better than their parents. I will do better than they did. And I pray my children do better than I did, But there was just always a lot of stuff going on, and it started with my brother in a really young age. And when you have a sibling that is struggling and it's like a life or death matter, anybody else in the house kind of just gets overlooked.
So set the scene with your brother. Your brother, you were 14, your brother was 19. And what exactly was going on with your brother?
So he had a drug and alcohol addiction that started at a very young age. So a little bit of background story. My mom had him when she was 18 or 19, and he was biracial. And so when, I came into the picture, my dad had already adopted him. It would, my whole life, like, it would really irritate me if someone would refer to him as my half brother. Like, we didn't see it that way. Like, I only ever knew him as my brother, and I didn't see it any other way. And I think that, since I've gotten older and had a lot of conversations with my mom about it, I think he felt other, like he felt different and always wanted to find his way. Like, I remember one time, like, going through, remember the phone book? Like, going through the phone book and helping him find his biological dad, and we were going to call him. And I think he just had a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of struggles, and probably at a really young age experimented and found, like, oh, I don't have to feel these things when I take this or whatever. And then so fast forward, 8 years, and he's in the county jail, and he doesn't come home. I mean, my parents tried everything. All of the rehab centers and everything, and it just got to a point where I remember vividly my dad said he's either going to kill himself or someone else. And so...
Is that what happened? Like,
what?
When you say he passed away in jail?
He passed away in jail, yeah.
Do we know how? And you don't have to. I mean, if you don't want to.
No, I don't mind. I know more about, so there was a whole lawsuit that went on for about a decade. There was a civil case and a criminal case. The criminal case was dropped, but the civil suit was won, and he had 2 daughters, and they received lump sums and,
So wrongful death.
Yes, but so after he passed away, we were told, the day, I'll just never forget, he actually died on 9/11, but it wasn't 2001, it was 98. And it was a Friday morning, and I remember it was the night before. I was in band. I was a flag. And it was the first time I lost the competition, because you had to compete to be in the show the next night. And the band in Grove City, it's like they don't mess around.
Right.
Okay, so this was serious. This was like the worst thing that ever happened to me, that I lost that night. And so I just go to bed pissed off, 14 years old, door locked, just wake up the next morning I can hear it, just the pounding on the door. And I'm like, what? Why are you pounding on my door? And my mom just sits down and very matter-of-factly says, your brother killed himself last night. And he had had attempts, and I use air quotes because they were calls for, help, cries for help. And so I just remember thinking, he tried. You forgot a word in that sentence. He tried, right? And so we proceeded and made the funeral arrangements. And then we get a call from someone in the county jail. And they just said, your son did not kill himself. And I don't know all the details that happened after that. I just remember we were at the funeral home and my brother was covered in makeup. And my dad starts yelling at the funeral director to take the makeup off of him. I want everyone to see what they did to him. And so they when a young person dies, everybody shows up, right? So it was like there was a line from his casket all the way down Stringtown Road in Grove City. And, they took the makeup off, and I still can see his arms just covered. He had a print. I saw the autopsy pictures. There was a print of a boot on his back, and so much of it, they said he hanged himself, but then they were able to prove that the marks on his neck weren't consistent with suicide. And so there were a lot of theories. There's more than one should really know about, their brother and things I saw. So was it proven that someone did that to him? I guess not. It wasn't proven, but there was a civil suit, and that was one. So needless to say, that was a very significant shift in my story.
I mean, it creates, I call them fault lines. And the big things like that, you're never the same. There's before that, when you're pissed off about losing the, and then there's after that. And of course, your subconscious has anxiety. Of course, the anxiety. I feel like anxiety just manifests itself, and you don't even know.
Well, I just basically waited on everyone to die.
Right.
I just was. I mean, even to this day, that's something I really battle. I check my husband's location.
Oh, honey.
I check my mom's location. We share locations. I know where everybody is, and if I don't know, I go into a panic. I mean, you can ask my mom's circle. There's a few times a year that I sound the alarm, and she's just napping. She wakes up, and the pastor's coming over, and they're like, "Staci thinks you're dead."
Listen, you are, I mean, preaching to the choir with my trauma too. I will, if Brady is gone with Dane for too long. So it just happened the other night where something will happen. It's like past 6 o'clock. Where are you? It's past 6 o'clock. You're not answering. Something happens inside of me where I lose all rational thought.
Yep, it's gone.
And until he will call, it's not okay. And so then he comes in, he's like, honey, what? I go, you have to know this. I understand and own this craziness, but when it happens, I have no control over it. So it's going to happen.
Yep.
If you are past a certain time or I hear a siren or something like that, it is going to happen.
Yep.
I totally feel you on that.
I check my children's breathing throughout the night. Adam, I'll give him a little nudge. If he doesn't move, I'll get a little harder to move, and then I'll shake him. And then once he moves, I roll over and act like I'm asleep. And he's like, God damn it, Staci, stop it.
Because once though, at 14 years
just lives
old,
in you.
You're 14. And when you see something like that and experience that, no wonder. So you end up, we're back to Bluespot now. We have this amazing business we're starting to build in this space. And then there's drama with the first space, right? What happened with the space?
So, this is Adam and I were retelling this. We met at Brown Bag yesterday because I'm like, you gotta, there's been 3 kids and all this shit that's happened. You gotta help me remember all this. I just know my landlord's a fucking asshole, but you gotta fill in the details for me. So he helped freshen it up for me. But the one thing I do remember is I was sitting in the studio, and it was toward the end of, so our lease, we had 3 years with the right to renew for an additional 3, barring that we didn't, do anything wrong. right? And so it was approaching that time. It was in the spring, and we were set to renew in the fall. So I was at the studio. I was talking to this woman about teaching there, and my landlord walks in, and excuse me, let me go talk to him real quick. So I go over, I talk to him, I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know that we intend to extend our lease. Let me know how to proceed or what you need from me. And I just remember this look in his eye. It was like a twinkle. And I was like, well, that's weird. What's that about? Anyways, and I moved on, and I went and sat back down with this woman and talked about her teaching at the studio. And she looked at me, she goes, be careful with him. And I was like, why? Because she taught, so the space we were in was a fitness studio before, which is a lot of the reason that we were able to launch, because we did it on a super tight budget. Like, it already had mirrors, and it was pretty set up. But she had taught there, and she knew what had happened with the former tenant and that landlord. And I guess he had kicked her out, and it was a rough ending. And she said, he will kick you out. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I didn't think too much of it. But then I think it was his attorney contacted our attorney, and then she contacted us and said, he is not going to allow you to renew the lease because of yada, yada, yada. And I say yada, yada, yada because it was all bullshit. And we knew it was bullshit. But what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Like, I can't afford to take this man to court and fight him. I know a lot more now. I know I should have just stayed and been like, what are you going to do? You don't have a right to kick me out. So we left. I was devastated. I was frantically searching for another space. And that's a whole other story. But to stay with this specific landlord, which if you Google my name, you'll see his name too.
I was going to ask his name, but I figured that'd be really
well, it's public record. His name's Stelios Giannopoulos. Yeah. I hope he rights his soul before he dies. He doesn't have much time left on this earth. But anyways, so we get kicked out. I'm like, let's just move on. Let's just move on. And I'm trying to find a new space. And here I've done something that, like, I didn't realize, like, is hard for people to do. Like, Bluespot opened and it was a success. I mean, month one, people were plopping their cards down, paying up front for their first year. And a lot of those people are still there. One of my favorite quotes, I heard from Oprah, I don't know if she came up with it, but it's, luck is when opportunity meets preparedness, right? And so, yes, I was prepared, but there was certainly some luck in there. There wasn't a yoga studio in Bexley. That's huge. And it just was a very successful business out of the gate. And then it was gone. It was like basically pulled out from underneath of me. And I didn't know where to go, what to do. It was a really scary thing. And so anyways, we had moved on, and I'm working on finding a new space. And then he fucking sues me. I get a, I remember this now, actually, because Adam and I were trying to remember the details of this. I was our babysitter at the time. I wanted to look and see if she had anything on her record. So I was just Googling. Mm-hmm. And then you can go to, like, the Franklin County Municipal Court website. You just type in someone's name and you can see any record that they have or any lawsuits that are against them. And so I was like, well, I wonder if there's anything under my name. And I looked up Staci McCool, and it said I was being sued. And I was like, what is this? I didn't know yet. I hadn't been served yet. So that's how we found out. So then we get served, and he was suing us for $14,000 to try to justify the kicking us out. So he was saying that we did things to the building that we didn't have approval for. A lot of the things, and one of the things that I learned, I had a lot of verbal agreements with him. Because in the beginning, it was like, I called him G, like Giannopoulos, like, what up, G? Like, we had a great, he was like the old guy. He was really nice to me. And until, for some reason, he didn't want me in the building. And so he came after us, and I had just finished my first teacher training, like where I was training teachers, and one of them was an attorney. And so I reached out to her and I said, can we just sit down and have lunch? I don't know what to do here. And we sat down and I told her the story. And she said, Staci, I got into law because I want to help people. And sometimes it's not possible for me to help people in their troubles because I don't have the time for it. She goes, but this is a no-brainer. She goes, there's right and there's wrong, and this is wrong. What he's doing is wrong. It's a no-brainer. I got it. And I'm like, okay, Kate, that's great, but like I can't afford she's like, no, I got it. I got it. So litigation went on for over a year, and it was like during COVID. So once the courts opened back up, it was all the criminal cases took precedence, and then the civil suits, and so it just dragged out forever. It felt like it was never going to end. Like we were well into the new space. We had moved on, but it was just like it just kept drumming everything back up. And one interesting thing, so when we were being deposed, Stelios was there too. If you pull his name up, you'll see that he's got like 20 lawsuits where he's the plaintiff in all of them. And they ask you if this is your first time being deposed. And it was mine, it was Adam's, and it was Stelios' first time too, which I found really interesting. And what's interesting about that is because landlords are aware that it is not worth me hiring an attorney for the deposit you're keeping and the $14,000 you're coming after me for. It's just cheaper if I write the check and move on. But he didn't know that I had Miss Kate Ferguson in my back pocket, okay? And so all of that litigation, more than a year, he had to pay his attorney, all of that. And he had to write me a check.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. That felt pretty
Oh,
fucking good.
yeah. Take that, buddy.
I have it hanging in my office.
Yeah, right. I would too.
Yeah.
That was just, justice was served.
The thing is small business owners, as you know, like for us, we started on a shoestring budget. There was a lot of luck involved with us getting everything off the floor. The one thing is, when people say you can't do this, I'm like, well, watch me. And everyone was like, nobody gets small business loans. Like that can't happen. You don't get small business loans. I got a small business loan. I got a $30,000 loan, and I opened Bluespot on it. $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
And built this thing over 3 years, and he pulled it out from underneath me. For what? So you could let another person come in and increase their rent? Like, you're messing with people's lives, Have you had
good prevailed?
Have you had bad experiences with landlords?
Not bad, not bad experiences, but they're just interesting. It's an interesting game.
I'm okay with it being interesting, but just when it's like dirty.
Nothing like that, no.
I see him around sometimes. I'll see him at the Giant Eagle on Bexley.
You're like giving him the stank
eye.
I
look right at him. Like, remember this face.
I love it.
Don't you forget it.
Okay, so there's another interesting twist in this whole story that we need to discuss is the stalker.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So in the midst of all of this, where did the stalker start? When was the first time that you met this person? So
he started coming to the studio and just taking classes. And there was a heaviness about him. And I just really felt for him. Even though, like, my Spidey senses were pinging. It was like, I even reached out because I knew that he went to school in Bexley, and he was, early 20s. And one of just other teachers that knew him were also students of mine. So I'm like, hey, what's the deal with this kid? And I found out more about him. And then I felt even more, I felt more for him. And so it started really innocent. But where it started to feel uncomfortable is like everyone would leave after Shavasana, but he was still in Shavasana. And it felt like he kept putting himself in a situation where he would want it to be that only I was there with him. At first, I was like, he's lonely. and I've been very kind to him. So he feels comfortable with me, and I'm okay with that. Like, I remember he was like, because he did like my trial month or something. And then he was like, it's been great coming, but I can't afford this. I'm like, I'm not going to charge you, like, and here's a yoga mat. Like, just keep showing up. And the things that were triggering was just like he would always stick around when everyone left. That was bothersome. But still, it wasn't enough for me to be like, I should do something about this. And it was Thanksgiving. I taught a class, and everyone left but him. And I was like, well, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? He was at my house that night, right? Like, he didn't have anywhere to go. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we always have way too much food. Like, just come over. And it was fine. And then he just kind of went away. I didn't hear from him for like, I don't know, felt like a year. I don't know. And it was last summer, like a year ago, Adam was like mowing the lawn and I was at the studio, and he drives by, stops, and he says, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of your wife. And Adam's like, oh, okay, I'll let her know. So I get home that night, and Adam was like, so-and-so stopped by and said they've been trying to get a hold of you. And I looked at my phone. I'm like, I don't have any missed calls. That's odd. So I texted him and I said, hey, buddy, like I don't have any missed calls or anything. And he just said, are you ready? And in my mind, I thought he was going to say something really exciting. Like, I got a great job.
I just got like goosebumps.
Yeah. No. I said, ready for what? And he said, I have condoms and lube. I'll be over. And I was like, you realize you're talking to Staci McCool, your yoga teacher, right? And I show Adam the phone, and Adam, he rightfully so got really upset. And he ends up calling, and Adam and him start going at it on the phone. At one point, he threatens to kill Adam, and it was like a whirlwind. But I'm just sitting there like, what is going on? And then we get the police involved. They come over to the house, and they were great, but at the same time, like, nothing had happened. So I don't think they could take it very seriously. But while we were sitting there filing the report, this student FaceTimes me, and he's masturbating and ejaculating on FaceTime. And the officer is sitting right there. And the officer then realizes this is a more serious situation than what I initially had thought. And and then he just started saying things that, like, clearly was not in his right mind. Like, he was walking around his apartment going, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. So needless to say, Adam and I did not sleep that night. And they had a cruiser out in front of our house. And then the first thing we did the next morning was go and file a restraining order. But I remember the first class back teaching, I stood in the corner in the back of the room because it just felt like the only place that felt safe, because there's a wall behind me and I could see the exit across from me. And it was a really scary existence for quite a while. Like, I went into the range and I learned how to shoot. I had, my cute little Lululemon belt bag. There was not chapstick in there. I was carrying a gun. And he was a big guy. And I knew that if he did try to come to the studio when I was there alone, like, there's no way I could have defended myself, So I wanted to share that story because I remember a book that my mom got me when I was, I think, in high school, and it was this The Gift of Fear. You familiar with this? Is a former, like, New York City FBI detective or something. And all of the stories that he shares of women that were either raped or didn't make it start with, something was off with this guy. Something was off. And because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, we don't listen to that voice that's telling you something is off. So now that's been taken away from me, you know? I had been doing that kind of thing with people since I opened. You know, I can see people and, okay, I got it. Like, just keep coming. I got it. You need a mat? Here's a mat. Now, I don't hesitate to charge the people that can pay, you know? But I have to really think about that now. And I have to be careful how much I put myself out there to students.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you can see it so clearly in hindsight. But I can absolutely see your position. And then I'm thinking about this, and there's so much about it that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. But I can only imagine you thinking, okay, so I hadn't seen him for what felt like a year, you said?
Yeah.
So he's pining and stewing and
yeah.
And was he watching and stuff?
I don't know.
Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like you weren't thinking about this guy. It had been how long since Thanksgiving dinner, and he went away.
Yeah.
That part is really
and that's why after it all happened, that I was just constantly paranoid, because I'm like, okay, 3 months has passed, but he let like 9 months pass between Thanksgiving and stopping by my house. So
where we're at today is that you have the restraining order.
If he comes anywhere within eyesight of me, my kids, or my husband, he goes straight to jail.
Okay, so we don't even know where he is, though.
Mm-mm.
He could be in another state.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But your head's on a swivel.
Oh, yeah. And I said before we started, but there's been a couple of times that I've thought that I saw him, and my body just goes into this. I've almost freeze.
What a horrible thing to have to go through.
It's, you know, Adam and I make light of shit because it's, you know, it's the way you got to handle things. But he's like, you know, Stace, some of the craziest fucking people have all been from your yoga studio.
Well, that's a nice segue. You know, so when you bring this community together, like Bluespot, the philosophy or the underbelly of it probably is like, you belong here. Come one, come all. You know, give me, you know, bring them in. And like you just said, like, yeah, if I see someone who maybe can't afford it, like, I'm going to give you and that's part of sort of building this community. But then you're going to have maybe situations, like an extreme situation like that, which hopefully doesn't happen very often, my God.
Yeah.
Or ever to anyone.
You know, we're seekers, yoga people. Not all. You know, some people just want to come move and sweat and breathe. But I find that a lot of people that end up on a yoga mat are trying to heal something, either physically, mentally, or both. And 99% of the time, it's a beautiful process to witness and be a part of. But there is that one or two that you're like, okay, this is beyond my scope, and I got to draw the line here and say, you don't belong here, because I got to keep it safe for all of us, you know?
What part do you like more? Do you like teaching the teachers, teaching the actual class, or can you not really pick one? Is it like choosing between children?
It's hard to say, because I'm in the thick of a teacher training program right now, and I just love it. I just love it. I mean, you get this group of people that in 10 weeks go from being complete strangers to a family, and they're so connected. And to get to facilitate that and share that process with them is really a gift. Like, I pinch myself. But I also love teaching classes. It's the most out of my head and in my body that I am. It's even more than like my practice sometimes for me, because a lot of times my practice becomes like what I want to create for a good class. So it's very like thought out, like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Okay, no, let's do this. No. But when I'm teaching, it is a flow state. It is where I feel my most authentic self. I don't hesitate before anything comes out of my mouth. If I have something to say, it's going to come up. I'm not going to try to suppress it. And if I don't have anything to say, I don't say anything at all. I just let the silence be in the room too. And I'm really comfortable with that, where I think probably in a social setting, I feel the opposite.
Speaking of social settings, you described yourself as an introvert in sort of an extrovert role. So you'd rather be home than anywhere.
Yeah.
Samesies.
Yeah.
You know they call that, there's a name for it, but I can't remember. It's an ambivert, I think. When you're a well, actually, I'm a hybrid, I feel like. So I'm part intra and part extra. But
I'm definitely an introvert, extrovert. I'm
so
definitely
we're, I think,
both.
ambiverts. I think that's what you call it. I could be saying the name wrong.
I just always identified as an extrovert. But it wasn't until I was like, but why do I feel so depleted? Why do I need to recharge? One of the things I learned in therapy with my husband was like, I had this therapist in German Village. She was great. She did not pull punches, but she was just like, Staci, when people come to a yoga class, what are they paying you for? Like, I teach a yoga class. And how long is that class? 60 minutes. Okay. Why do you owe them anything before or after that class? Because she knew it was depleting me, and I would come home with very little to give my family because I would stay after class and have these conversations or get there early and have conversations with people before. So I've learned to be really protective of my energy. So I'm not really warm before class. I like to kind of show up right before it starts and conserve all the energy for that practice and then let that be enough. Because I feel like when I have 30 people coming at me and asking me questions, and then I go home at the end of the day and I try to give something to my kids, it's gone.
Yeah.
I need to fill back up. So
Yeah.
I teach a damn good yoga class, and
You
I
do.
will give you all that I got. But I give you that 60 or 75 minutes, and that's about it.
You know, it's funny. So I was just at Bluespot for 2 weekends in a row, and I would come all the time if it wasn't in Bexley, because that's literally like basically Texas to me. But that's the experience I got from you. But I liked it. So you, how do I describe the experience? Very, very good class. You did show up, kind of walked in right a little bit before, and you're very authentic. Nothing about it felt orchestrated or, very planned out and good. But yeah, you're just doing you in there.
Yeah.
And you're not afraid to kind of just be, which I think is why people probably you packed the fucking room. You couldn't even fit anything in there. People were just slammed in there. And I saw a couple SOSers too. They're like, hey girl.
I get some SOSers
Yeah, like
in there.
I look over, I see the SOS logo.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's up?
I know.
Yeah, it was good. Really good. You're doing it.
It's just one of those things where, I train people to be teachers. And I think that you can get good at teaching if you want to be a good teacher. But that next level where I feel I am is because I'm meant to be one. I'm in my lane. I'm not trying to be something else.
Mm-hmm. But you're so right, though, because you can get stuck. And you have all the best of intentions, but everyone wants a piece of you, because you are Bluespot. And so if you don't somehow put guardrails up, you're really not helping anybody.
Nope.
So good for you.
Yeah, we went through a lot of therapy to get to that place.
Well, because your husband's probably thinking, well, shit.
Hello.
We're getting the fumes, and this is what always happens. We
Yeah.
have this beautiful family. This is our core, and now you're giving everything to the spot, and you're coming home like this.
It was like when we first opened, I had business cards, and I had my cell phone number on there.
Oh yeah,
big mistake.
But it's total rookie mistake because you just going back to what you said about the landlord. When you first start out, he said, "What up, G?" It always starts out that way.
Yeah.
Right. But inevitably, it's not going to probably end that way, depending on the situation. So when you open a business, first you want to be everything to everyone.
Yep.
You want it to be the best thing that ever was, and you just want everyone to love you and it's all encompassing. Of course you're going to give your cell phone number. Here's my fingerprint. Here's my social security number. Take it all.
Take it all.
And then you realize.
We're sitting at the dinner table and I'm getting texts. I can't log into my account. I left my yoga mat at the studio. And I'm responding, and Adam's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Right.
God, do I feel that? Do I feel this?
Put it away.
Do I feel this?
So hard. So hard.
I mean, my, God, SOS, when I was first, it didn't end. There was no start and stop for me with SOS.
Yeah.
It was all the time.
I would get up in the middle of the night, and I would go to other yoga studios, like on social media, and I would find people that are commenting, and then I'd like friend them, and then I'd be like, hey, that's a really good pose. Do you know that I'm opening a da-da-da? And I would do it for hours upon hours upon hours. It was like I didn't have an off switch. I still don't. I mean, it's better, I have a break, but like, I don't know. I think, to be really honest, I don't like the word entrepreneur. I don't know why.
I don't like it either.
It makes me cringe a little bit.
I said this before.
It's douchey, and I don't know why.
Especially when you go, entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur.
I'm an entrepreneur.
But I think that's the brain that's required for something to work.
No, it absolutely is.
You have to be obsessed with it.
And that was a problem for me in my relationship, because when you're obsessed with something, and other things suffer.
100%.
And we didn't have kids at the time, but I literally lived and breathed and did SOS all the time.
Yeah.
The number of hours and effort and energy that I put to help build that company, I look back and I'm like, I did nothing else.
That was it.
Nothing.
Yep.
And which is great. I loved every second of it. But then at some point...
And that's why you can do it, because you love it. It doesn't feel like work.
Correct. And that's the problem too, where it was a significant obsession of mine. And it was and I listen, I love the experience, but I'm in a very different place with that now. But looking back, man, I was...
Yeah. Our poor husbands.
Obsessed. Obsessed. But I mean, yeah, look at your spot, and it's banging.
Yeah.
You just have to always be careful of the boundaries, and they're always fluid, right? It's like, and you just always have to protect them.
And it's yoga too, right?
Oh yeah.
It's, I want to give every person that walks into the studio, I want to give them all of me. I want to just help. I want to give them what I got. But what I've found is that I gotta save some of it for my people.
Yeah, and maybe that guy, it was kind of like a weird way of the universe, because it sounds to me like you really would have given the shirt off your back, and like you would have had somebody new over for dinner every night, and it just would not, that was a real lesson.
It was,
albeit a harsh one. But tell me now, so what with Bluespot, and like, I feel like you're in your groove, your sweet spot, what would you want people to know about the studio? Like, if somebody's out there and they're like, I've really wanting to get into yoga, or maybe I want to do yoga teacher training. Like, why Bluespot? Why you? They probably already know that now by just listening to you, because you're fucking awesome. But is there anything else in your back pocket?
I love our community. They're really welcoming. We were talking about this before, that I want to start a podcast, not to be on Carrie Croft's level, but for my people to know each other, because we can't do that at the studio, It's usually very chill before a class. People are kind of just in their own space. And then you leave Shavasana and it's quiet. And so the most you get is, hi, how are you? Good, how are you? And there's not a ton of connection happening. And so I would love to interview people in our community, and so that they can hear each other, make connections based on that. But when they do have the opportunity to connect, because we've done stuff over the years where we meet outside of the studio and whatnot, I just love our people. And I can see when someone new walks in the door, my OGs that have been there since day one, I feel like they know me. I feel like they're like, I got it. I'll show them around. I feel like they know, like, that I am holding all the energy for a fucking killer class. And they'll show someone where the restroom is or where the water fountain is, or, you know, make them feel welcome and ask them questions. So our community is pretty incredible. And a lot of people that started with us day one are still with us.
Which says a lot.
Yeah.
What would you call your podcast?
No idea.
I think we should put it out there. I think your peeps should help you name it.
Yeah. I'll put it on them. I'm tired, Carrie. I don't know. 3 kids and it's Jesus.
We got to figure out a name.
But Bluespot is, Bexley's a hard thing. You know, like you said, coming to Bexley is like going to Texas, right? But the truth is, like, I'm just off of 670. Like, you can get to my spot quick. But Bexley in it of itself, you know, like when Adam and I, so we did the natural thing that I feel like a lot of people did. So when we moved back and we started our family, we were in German Village. And we were having a great time, you know, walking around Schiller, going to Brown Bag. And then it was like, all right, we got to go to the burbs. But, like, we're cool. So, like, we don't want to go to the burbs. We're just going to go just, like, to just outside the city. And so, of course, we looked at UA, we looked at Clintonville, we looked at Bexley, and I knew wherever I was going to land, I was going to open a yoga studio. But I remember our realtor mentioning Bexley, and I was like, the place with Drexel? Like, where's that? I lived in German Village. I'm from Columbus. And it's just this, I don't know, it's this weird thing, and I'm experiencing it as a business owner, getting people like, oh, well, it's in Bexley. Like, it's this far away place you have to travel to, when it's really not.
It's not.
It's really not. Like, I got here to your studio in like 12 minutes.
And I probably got to your studio in maybe 12 minutes.
It just feels,
I don't know why it feels
I don't know.
far.
It's on the east side.
Because I live in the bubble. I live in the UA.
You've got your UA bubble. I've got my Bexley bubble.
We don't really travel.
But when I do get people to come outside of the bubble, I have the same conversation all the time. Like, I did not know you were here. This is like real legit yoga. Yeah.
Well, you better recognize.
Yeah. Bring it on in.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Staci, we're coming up on 60 minutes.
That went fast.
Can you believe it?
That went fast. I have to tell you, I was fine once I got here. But like last night, as I was trying to fall asleep, I was having a lot of anxiety.
You know, it's weird. Like, I can't believe how many people get really anxious to come in here.
It's not bad once you're in here, guys. It's good.
It's really good, right? Is it me? Am I the problem?
It's me.
Hi.
The problem is me.
Don't answer that.
You are intimidating.
Yeah.
You're not once you talk. I've never really talked to you. I think I've, you know, Hudson.
Yeah.
You know, I saw you and I knew who you were.
And then we were DMing a little bit.
And yeah, but like I've never talked to you.
Yeah.
And you have this like larger than life personality that you want to be around, but you're also a little afraid of. But once I start talking to you,
I'm just a little baby.
Yeah. And like I said, the same thing in the intake form. People tell me I'm intimidating. And I'm like, well, I'm just a soft, hot mess goo on the inside. So
you're just like, hey, what's up? Like, I'm just kind of here. I'm cool. Like, hey, I'm McCool.
I'm McCool.
And I'm, you know, like, I just feel like you're just you. And I dig that in somebody. And with that, Staci, it has been a pleasure.
It's been awesome.
I'm glad we've been able to vibe and feel that I like this collective energy that we've got going on together.
Me too.
All right. If you're still out there following your girl, follow me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, keep moving, baby.
That was great.
Not too scary.
Not at all.
Better than going to the dentist, right?
Yeah. Actually, the dentist isn't bad because no one's.
I actually.
Me.